Hey Bethel family, welcome to Kid Connect.
Kid Connect.
We hope you guys are all having a great day and thank you for joining us. Yesterday was the first day of spring. Can you believe that already? We're getting so close to Easter, and we have been enjoying going through all these events that lead up to Easter in the life of Jesus. And so, you ready to dive right in?
Let's go.
Right.
I thought the kids were sitting watching us, but then I looked over and it's just a whole bunch of stuffed animals.
We've got an audience.
We have an audience today. So, all right. So go ahead. What are we getting into this? So last week we talked about Palm Sunday,
yes, we did.
which is actually
next week.
But going through the
Yes.
events of leading up to what we celebrate on Easter. So what's today?
So today we are getting very close to Easter, the time that we celebrate for Easter. And so what they were celebrating was a festival called Passover. And if you guys remember, Passover was when the angel passed over the houses that had the blood on the doors in the houses of Egypt when that 10th plague happened. And so they did this every year. They would go to Jerusalem and they would celebrate celebrate Passover. So what they were doing was Jesus was getting them set up for the Passover meal, right? So the disciples and Jesus, they were going to have this meal together. And we call it now the Last Supper. And these are found in Matthew 26 and also in John 13. So little parts here and there. So what was the first thing that happened?
So we're going over three things that happened at the Last Supper. The first one was when they came in, Jesus takes off his cloak and starts going down to the disciples, and they're just like, whoa, what is happening? Because Jesus is going to wash their feet. Which that was normally the place of a servant, and so for them, Jesus, that's their master, right? And so for him to wash their feet would be totally inappropriate for that time.
Yeah.
And so Peter, of course, is the one that is like, no, don't do this. And of course, Jesus is, no, I'm teaching you something here.
Yes. There's always a lesson.
And then Peter, of course, takes it to the extreme. Is like, well, then wash all of me, And Jesus like, all right, this is what needs to be washed. And so in that moment, Jesus is teaching them that that's the whole idea, is that really, in order to show love, in order to be the lead, you lead by serving. That we are supposed to be. It's all of the first shall be last, and that we need to be humble and that we're not above anybody else. And in that moment, Jesus is teaching them all sorts of different stuff.
Yeah.
And so he goes around and washes his disciples' feet to not only teach them, but to model servant leadership. That you lead by serving, and that's what they need to go and do for the world.
Yeah.
So, all right, that was number one.
Yes.
That's one thing. Not,
And number two, the second thing that happened that night that is very important to point out is they sat down to eat after they had their feet washed, and they sat down and Jesus said, one of you is going to betray me tonight. Can you imagine what the reaction of everybody is? They're like, what? We've spent all this time with you and someone would betray you? I mean, that the disciples were very upset about this. They were very upset. And Jesus said, it's one of you in this room. And the disciples were like, it's not me. And so he said, the one that I hand the bread to will betray me tonight. You know who you are. And so he went to Judas and handed him, and he said, go, do what you need to do. And the disciples were like, they were so confused. They're like, what is happening? How could somebody do this? But Judas knew.
Eventful dinner. How many of you have dinners like this at Thanksgiving with your family?
It was very
just eventful. Just over and over.
But Judas knew in his heart he had already set up these plans to betray Jesus for the money. But so he left, and the disciples
Can I add one thing to that?
Yeah, go for it.
Again, can we just go back to Peter? There's so much to learn about Peter. Peter's like, not me. I would never, right? Peter's like, not me. But then Jesus looks and goes, excuse me, but before the day is out, you're going to deny even knowing me 3 times. And
Not
so
just once,
it's just be careful, be careful saying that you're never going to do something or that you're perfect. Be careful doing that kind of thing, because we're all gonna mess up.
Yes.
We are all gonna mess up. It's just after we mess up, how we handle it.
That's very true.
You know, that we need to go and ask for forgiveness. But it's one of those, I would never. It's you never want to make those kind of statements because you never know what is going to happen. So,
mistakes are made.
One of you will betray me. I will never. Actually, Peter.
Just later tonight.
Because later tonight you're going to pretend you don't even know who I am. So that's the second thing. So another thing that happens, the number 3 that Miss Kristen wanted to point out today is communion. Thank you. I was reading a thing and I forgot where I was going because I was thinking about Peter. But Jesus basically breaks bread and passes around wine, and with each moment he's basically saying that do this to remember the sacrifice that I've made, that is coming. Do this to remember me. And how that looks at, for his broken body and his blood that was shed and all these different things. And that's actually why in church we do communion. So if you're a kid out there and you always wondered why sometimes the adults have crackers and grape juice, it's not just to have a snack in the middle of service. I know our kids, when they get hungry, we give them like a protein bar. That's just because they're hungry. But when there's this moment in service where, like grape juice or crackers, or it's different in different churches. Some use like actual pieces of bread, some use all sorts of things. Some people use grape juice, some people actually use wine, all sorts of different stuff. But what is important about that is it is a moment to reflect on our relationship with God. To first of all go into it. You're supposed to God, search my heart. What isn't clean in me? Forgive me. You provided this way for me to be come before you, and so clean me, forgive me for the sins that I've done. The Bible even talks about going, and if you've been in an argument with someone, go make it right with them. Go do these things, and so it's like it's a time to remember what Jesus did and to get ourselves right, and just remembering that sacrifice and all the things that it just represents so much, and it's an important moment in the church to do those kind of things. And so we call it communion. And so if you're in church and you're like, oh, what are they doing? Well, it's communion, and where, the bread represents Jesus's body and the cup represents his blood that was shed, the sacrifice that was made. And so,
you have to think about the disciples that night. They, Jesus has been telling them that this is coming, and they're probably like, well, you said it was coming, but we didn't think it was really going to happen. All of this is starting to happen. And Jesus was trying to give those last preparations. He's trying to instill all these things that he wants to tell them before he is crucified. And even the communion, they're probably thinking, what are you doing? They had to have all these questions, but Jesus was trying to prepare them for what was to come. And we do he set the examples for us to do even thousands of years later, for remembering him through the communion. And I don't know if you've seen people wash other people's feet. They do it as an act of humility, an act of servantship, something. I can't think of the word, but I think it's amazing that Jesus set all these examples up. Of this small time that he was on earth, he did all these things as an example for us to follow. And I just think that's amazing.
Yes, absolutely. All right, you want to pray?
Yeah, I'll pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much. Thank you for all these things that you have done for us. And thank you for all these examples that you've given us of how to live and how to be more like you. And we just thank you ultimately for the sacrifice that you made for us, and for the relationship that we can have with you. And we just help us to never take that for granted. And we just pray that you will help us to understand more and more each day as we read your word, and how you would like us to live and to treat people, and to focus on you in everything we do. And we love you and we praise you in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right. Well, it's so good to see you all. And some of you we saw in person this morning. We love being able to see everybody. And there's going to be more updates on all the different things that'll be starting up again in person at the church. So be looking for that at gobethelchurch.com. And then Miss Kristen posts all different family devotions and tools. So if you're a kid, tell your parents, hey, we want to do devotions tonight. And if you're a parent, use these tools that Miss Kristen is putting up.
Yeah, these next couple of weeks we have some special ones coming up about Easter. So
so check it out.
Check those
GoBethelChurch.com or the Facebook.com /Go Bethel Church or Go Bethel Kids.
Right.
Either one will get you all that different information. And so we'll see you all next week.
Yes.
On Palm Sunday.
Yep, Palm
in
Sunday.
which we'll talk about Palm Sunday because we talked about that last week.
Get your palms ready.
Get your palms ready. Your palms.
Celebrate.
Your palms?
Palm.
Or a palm.
Either
We
one.
live in Florida. We got lots of palms. All right. All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
We'll just wave this time.
Bye.
Bye.